Data centers are going to be the great financial crisis. They are going to be where this explosion happens. There's this massive gap between the promises and the realities, and people are filling it in with fan fiction and mythology. Every link in the chain of pain is such that it requires debt or equity. And without that debt and equity, if that disappears, that's what breaks things. People will say, well, AI will work this out. You better bloody hope it does, because if it doesn't, we are facing probably multiple financial crises.
On the Tech Report with me today is writer of Where's Your Ed At and the host of the Better Offline podcast, Zitron. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
This week, we've seen another drop in the AI markets, over $1 trillion fall so far. I think it's kicking up again today. But this is kind of the second time in 3 or 4 months that we've actually seen this happen. The last one being sort of just after the peaks in valuations we saw in November.
Mm-hmm.
Despite that, though, big tech companies are being the opposite of cautious in their response to this and are projected to be raising, I think it's $150 billion in debt this year to fund the AI build out.
Yeah.
Google, for example, is planning on doubling their spend, so not specifically their debt, but their overall spend on the AI build out to $185 billion this year.
Yep.
Do you think that this is a display of confidence, or do you think this is more of a kind of sunk cost fallacy?
I think the way to look at hyperscalers is that nobody has any original ideas. No one, Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, they're all kind of doing the same thing. Look at what Meta's doing with AI. Can you explain it? I can't. And that's the thing. These companies have committed themselves to the graveyard smash in such a way that they must spend more. I think they're going to be approaching $1 trillion in capex in the next year or so. It's unbelievable, but also very obvious. They've put this much money in. What could they possibly do? Stop? And Michael Hartnett, who's the chief investment officer at Bank of America Securities, this morning said something around the very strange comment. We were saying, yeah, what would change the story from AI or to AI poor would be if a hyperscaler cut capex, referring to capital expenditures, GPUs, data centers, and all that. It's funny because Mike Casey was saying this. He's saying that these people don't say things in a vacuum. They don't just go like, wouldn't that be weird if that happened? So I reckon there's probably an expectation, or at least a anxiety, fear, interest. I don't know what it is within the markets that this might happen. And if hyperscalers cut capex, it's a spiral effect on spiral effect. It will go through. It will show that AI is not an eternal creature. That this is not going to happen forever, but it's also going to hit the ODM manufacturers, who are the companies out in Taiwan, like Hon Hai, Foxconn. They're called Foxconn, Quantum Computing, and so on. Wibian, Wistron. These big Taiwanese companies that are currently seeing record revenues because they're passing through all of the GPU sales to put inside servers for the hyperscalers. So if hyperscalers cut capex, it's not just Nvidia that's going to get a cut. It's going to be TSMC. Eventually, TSMC will be on the latter side because remember, TSMC, you book out months, years in advance. And so the fabs are going to be working regardless of whether or not NVIDIA can sell the chips. Now, if anything happens with TSMC's revenue, that will be worrying, but really we'll see it first in these ODM. And I know that sounds very complex, but it's really simple. It's just when a hyperscaler builds a data center, they don't just call NVIDIA and go, hey, can you put this in a server, please? They go to one of their trusted server manufacturers to put it through. The problem is that NVIDIA moved them to this rack scale thing, the GB200 NVL72, 72 GPUs, 36 CPUs. Again, sounds complex, but it means a big server full of GPUs. Once they did that, these manufacturers over in Taiwan, they stopped being able to just say a little bit of the money. They stopped being able to say, oh, we're just 5% of revenue because obviously we're not going to take the entire cost of a GPU as revenue. That stopped with servers. Now, I know this sounds very complex, but their revenues are artificially inflated. The largest companies in the Taiwanese stock market are currently having their revenues inflated with very low margin servers because the cost is mostly the GPUs and the memory as well. I don't know. All gets a bit complex. Very simple. If hyperscalers cut capex, if they stop spending, the ripple effects will be remarkable. And also, the market around AI will spiral.
What about a pressure from the other direction? If, for example, they put out a funding round, but then they fall short of selling the bonds, the debt to investors. Is that something we're likely to see, or
I don't think so. So you've seen the 100-year bond with Google, for example. Very strange thing we'll get to in a minute, but nevertheless, generally bonds are oversold. Every single big bond sale you see with a big company, people want those bonds because big company, trustworthy company you invest in. So when you see, oh, it was oversubscribed with those bonds, it usually just means people want a large allocation, so they order way more than they actually think they'll get. Putting all that aside, you're not going to have a trouble selling hyperscaler bonds. They're big, trustworthy companies. But I think the thing to look out for right now is how is OpenAI doing with that $100 billion funding round? Because say they close it, fine. They still have to pay Oracle another $200 billion on top of that in the next 5 years. Don't know how that's happening. But if you look at the Anthropic round that just raised $30 billion, remarkable stuff. 37 investors. So look, we are the World Telethon to fund Anthropic so that they can burn, I think they're going to burn $100 billion according to the information in the next 3 years just on training. So really the weak points are hyperscaler spending and these funding rounds for these AI companies. I see OpenAI closing another round. I do. I don't think that the venture capitalists and the what will probably be like 20 investors or more if they raise like Anthropic did. I think that they exist, they will want to put the money in. OpenAI's so big, so huge, so beautiful. We love OpenAI, clammy Sammy, we love OpenAI. But it's I think when you start seeing funding rounds lower down the chain collapse, that's one of the big signs. We see someone like Replit or Perplexity or I don't know, AnySphere Cursor just raised a big round in November, so they'll be fine. But Lovable, anyone who starts having money troubles and can't raise, that will also be the sign. I don't think you'll see corporate bonds fall apart just because they're so even if the AI bubble when it bursts, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think anything's stopping this one. Um, when it bursts, I don't think you're gonna see the death of the hyperscalers. Like, mashallah, maybe, but I don't know. It's I think it's more likely you'll see the lower tier companies die, but the big thing to keep an eye out for is data center delinquencies. When you see data centers that are delayed, I'm hearing that Stargate Abilene is not gonna get built in 2026. I've heard that from reliable sources. I think that's the big Oracle 1.2 gigawatt data center out in Texas that OpenAI is meant to move into in the middle of this year or the end of this year. It was actually meant to be the beginning of this year. Data centers are going to be the great financial crisis. They are going to be where this explosion happens. I put together a model this week of data center costs, and in the best possible environments, I've found maybe 35% gross margins, which do not include the massive debt required. Every data center deal is set up for perfection. Perfection is not possible in construction. And so, if we're looking for bubble signs, it's going to be data center deals falling apart, data centers already in construction falling apart, or data centers that have been built not being paid. And of course, CoreWeave. Anything happens to CoreWeave, CoreWeave really is like the Bear Stearns of GPUs.
I mean, I do want to get onto the alphabet, the century bond is I think
Right.
something I've called. Yeah, I want to get into that
Yeah.
because they're tapping the bond market for I think a 20 billion funding round and are
Yeah.
issuing a bond with a 100-year lifespan, so 100
Right.
years before they have to pay back the full amount essentially. I saw Michael Burry was making the point that the last time a company did this, because this is somewhat, well, relatively common in sort of governments and sort of those sorts of country level kind of long lasting establishments. Michael Burry pointed to Motorola as the last time this happened in 1997, shortly before
Yeah.
they fell significantly from their position as the world's most valuable company. I mean, what is the significance of a bond with a 100-year lifespan? And what does it tell you about sort of the state of financing of the AI build out right now?
Well, just to be clear, that Century Bomb was £1 billion. It wasn't everything they were raising. It was one beer. And 100-year bond is insane. It's like Google 100 years in the future, I will be dead for sure, 100%. And I severely doubt we could look at the world in any way today that's indicative of what will happen in 100 years. I just I think it shows that they're using every possible trick they have to raise money. they raised in, like, 3 different currencies, like, I think it was, pounds, Swiss francs, and dollars. What are you doing, Google? It's just they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. It goes back to what I was saying with Anthropic. It's like when you have to use every little trick possible to pull this together, this doesn't suggest that anything good's happening because and this is not even just being an AI critic. Really simple. They wouldn't have to do this if it was working. And they wouldn't have to do financial wizardry every 3 weeks just to put this stuff together because they'd have cash flow. They'd feed the cash in. And also, I think that there's a very reasonable question to start ask. What happened to the rest of the bloody CapEx? Where'd you put it? It's like asking your mum for a tenner and asking her for a tenner an hour later. What'd you spend it on? Crisps? Like what's going on here? I'm not even being ornery. I'm genuinely serious. Like, did they spent, I think, by the end of 2025, just a little bit under $700 billion dollars in CapEx since 2023. Where the hell has it gone? Really, where's it gone? Why did you do that? Putting aside whatever they're doing in the future, you spent all that money you could have been spending on shareholder buybacks, which I'm not saying are a good thing, but that's what investors should be asking because it's not creating revenue. It's creating a lot of hype. I have to hear from that Ponce Mustafa Suleiman every so often. Ugh. I have to hear Demis Habsibas warbling on about this. God, is that what I'm having? Why do I have to hear from these buffoons? Where's the money? Where'd the money go? What did you spend it on? Why did you spend it on that? To what end? Why are you raising a 100-year bond? 100 years of Google? What a horrible idea. And it's so illogical and irrational. And people will say smugly, oh, well, the market will stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Ooh, who cares? I live in cash. I don't care. Like, it's not my problem. My problem here is that these companies are setting everyone up to fail. I mean, in a in 100 years, will Google have £1 billion to hand over to investors? Maybe, but that bond will be worth so much less. Because yeah, I think interest rates might change a little in 100 years. Might go up, might go down, might do both of those things. Who knows? And also, if this whole capex spectacular fails, do you think that bond will be worth as much? God, no. It's just, it's very frustrating to watch because I, as a critic, have had to prove myself a lot, but these companies just go, "Yeah, spend another, in Amazon's case, $200 billion. Oh, what do you think? Do you like it? Now Amazon apparently hit their lowest stock value since 2006. I don't I admit I'm no longer celebrating or commiserating stock prices because seeing the software story, the AI software story come up and send valuations down, I'm just like, "Oh, the market's dumb now."
I mean, I do wanna get into that sort of seesawing we saw,
Mm.
but just to pick your brain a little further, are we essentially gonna be paying for Gemini 3 in 2126? And does that mean that I mean, Google's not short of money, but does it kind of mean that they're desperate to kind of get some buy-in?
I think what it is that I don't know the nuances of the bonds market and or their internal finances, but I will say this. If it was working, they wouldn't have to do weird stuff. You do weird stuff like this for a reason. Google has an excellent CFO. All of them do. They have fantastic CFOs, real gargoyle types. Like they will be around in 100 years. They don't age. And their CFOs are doing this for tax reasons, I imagine. There's probably an intricate web. But again, if they didn't need to do this, they wouldn't. They would do it in traditional ways, so they just wouldn't do it at all. I think it shows that they're scraping the bottom of the barrel a bit. I do like the idea that in 100 years, anyone thinks that we'll be thinking about Gemini. Like, just like that will be a thing that's on the tongue of, I don't know, when we're in the flying cars, talking dogs future, I assume is coming.
So I saw Fred Hickey, the editor of a monthly investment newsletter called The High Tech Strategist. He said that the AI bubble is popping sort of right now, and he purchased put options on Nvidia, which to the keen-eyed among us might recognize that bears a striking resemblance to what Michael Burry did a few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, except this is coming after a $1 trillion sell-off instead of kind of before it and arguably precipitating it a little bit. Do you agree that the bubble is popping right now, or are you taking his words with a bit of a pinch of salt, given he's also betting on the bubble popping right now?
Pinch of salt, just because I don't think it's popped yet. The sign it's popping will be CapEx pullback. It will be when the hyperscalers pull back. It will be that OpenAI has money troubles. It will be that Anthropic has money troubles. And the reason I keep bringing up Anthropic's this $30 billion round, people are taking this and their 14 billion of annualized revenue, so 1 point something billion dollars in a month. They're taking this as proof that Anthropic is eternal, and in 100 years we'll be singing Anthropic as well. That company raised $30 billion. They promised to buy $21 billion of chips from Broadcom last year, so that leaves them with 9 billion. I don't know. I think it's too early to say the bubble's popped. We are seeing signs, but perhaps we're hearing a kind of a high-pitched "neep" as the air comes out, but it's not quite popped yet. Because the signs that that is happening goes back to what I was saying earlier. Data center delinquencies, AI startups failing to raise. Cohere, an AI startup, is apparently considering an IPO. I think the moment one of these American companies pushes their dog poo startup onto an S1 form, I think that that's when people get really worrisome. Anthropic also planning an IPO. I think that once we see the real numbers, that's going to do a nasty one. And let's say one of these companies gets on the market, they dump. I really do think that they'll pop and they'll drop. There is going to be an intense hysteria immediately, but then they're going to see what happens. Because right now, someone like Anthropic, every 2 minutes I hear from that. Can I say bell end? Am I allowed to say that?
I actually don't know.
Well, you can beep it then. Nevertheless, that guy, Dario Amodei, I hear from every 2 minutes going, yeah, AI is going to replace 50% of white collar workers. It's going to replace all coding to be done by Anthropic's Claude Code in 6 to 12 months, blah, 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 blah. Every time you say that, I don't think that the market is going to respond in the same way if Anthropic goes public, nor are they going to respond well to people quitting the company and claiming that they're scared of how dangerous it is, because that kind of works when you're selling to dumb private investors that are desperate to jump on a hype train. When it comes to the public markets, which are run by even bigger babies, every single little knock on effect is going to freak them out. And honestly, I genuinely don't think that these companies can survive showing their dirty business. When they file to go public, we're going to see a lot more about the actual economics of these companies. You saw it in China with Zipu and it was Minimax and Zipu, I think they were called. One of them was like $35 billion of revenue and $200 million of losses in the space of 9 months or a quarter. I forget which one. It's like, do you think the American labs are more efficient than China or less? We're going to find out. We're going to find out, and I've reported how unprofitable they are. Others have reported how unprofitable they are. Anthropic lost $5.2 billion on $4.5 billion of revenue last year. I mean, once it sits there in stark reality, that will make people realize. But really, it will be Microsoft Meta saying, "Oh, we're not going to buy as many GPUs. 'Cause it turns out it only loses us money." After all this time, we said that this is the biggest, most hugest thing ever. Turns out it wasn't. I also, I'm going to be honest, OpenAI seems kind of washed at the moment. Like, you've got this braggadocious, very deceptive PR campaign going on for Anthropic. And everyone, you've got the Atlantic going, Claude Code did this. And then when you read the article, it's like, yeah, it made an app for a guy that doesn't do any work. Great. You're seeing all these people talk about Claude Code endlessly, but there's an excitement around it. Everything I hear about OpenAI these days is like your weird uncle. Oh, Uncle Sam's here. What's he want? Oh, he says he's working on God, I guess. Oh, he bought another GPU. Oh, can he afford that? No, he can't. He's run out of money. I hear he's getting a lot of debt though. Well, that's not good. It's just very strange how this company has gone from most favored son to most hated son. So I think to get back to the actual answer, the bubble is too early to call. It's gonna burst, but it hasn't burst yet. And yeah, I imagine someone with a big short position has a has an interest in pushing that narrative. I also think Nvidia is the wrong place to look. I think that you're going to see that knock-on effect there, sure, but as long as hyperscaler capex is up, Nvidia is going to keep being plugged. The place to look is to Taiwan. I swear to God, you because weird thing about the Taiwanese stock exchange, they actually post their revenues monthly. So if you see Foxconn, specifically like Quanta, Foxconn, Wibian, and Wistron, they are the big manufacturers for the hyperscalers. If their revenues drop, that means capex is being pulled. I'm checking every like the 5th of the month, every month I check. I am on there because that is where you'll actually see the signals early. That and also any AI startup having trouble raising funding is that's going to be the sign as well.
I think at this point I should clarify that this is definitely not financial advice because
Yes, I
neither of
I
us are qualified.
I'm not a financial advisor. I never have been. I never will be.
But on to the next thing. I mentioned the seesawing effect we saw between sort of the AI announcement and the knock-on effect on the software. And there's one thing I wanted to talk about is that we saw that sort of gulf between hardware and software providers kind of expand.
Yeah.
The chip maker TSMC's revenue went up by 37%. At the same time, bunch of software developers and companies saw their values drop from like 20 to 30% across the board,
Mhm.
kind of. Is that kind of thing like buying shovels when you know there's no gold to dig up?
So this whole software sell-off is one of the dumbest things I've seen in my life, and I've been looking at AI for years. And what it is that there is this fear within the markets that AI is going to replace software companies. And I must explain why this is really silly. What they think is that you go on Claude Code, you type, build me a Salesforce, build me a CRM, bring me one Salesforce right now. And then it just burps out a full Salesforce clone that will work inside your company. Amazing. Great. You've now got a CRM. Does it work? Oh, yeah, kind of. Kind of. Well, now you need to get the infrastructure done. Okay, so you're gonna bring what, 1,000 people in your company onto it. Do you have the you got the provisioning and all that on the web server side? Like, does that'll work? Oh, great. You're gonna have, I assume, an engineer on your team constantly maintain this software that is used all the time because it's now your internal tool. Great. Now you've done that. Oh, well, this is great. Oh, something broke. Well, something broke, and now our sales team can't actually access half the data they need to sell. Well, we can't yell at a vendor because we're building it. But all of this is assuming that you can actually build this software with Claude Code or whatever codex OpenAI has released. And it's a silly assumption. Like I saw, was it Charles Schwab get dumped because someone announced an AI tax tool? It's just, I maintain that the markets are run by toddlers. There's just someone with big red and green buttons in front of every company name. They hit them based on how the logo looks when they heard something scary from what they thought was a ghost, but was just an old man. Like it's very frustrating to watch because no, AI is not changing or destroying the software industry. This sell-off is a result of irrationality and a total ignorance in the market. TSMC, yeah, Nvidia is a huge customer, but they make chips for a lot more people than just Nvidia. Their growth is absolutely AI driven. TSMC's revenue going up is a sign that Nvidia is building a lot of GPUs. That's what I've heard, what it means. The software sell-off is a sign that no one really knows what AI does or can do, and thus they are just jumping at ghosts. It's like a dog seeing itself in the mirror. It's really embarrassing because it just shows a complete lack of understanding of software. Like you don't pay Microsoft 360 for Microsoft 365 because you just get software. You pay for a maintained, semi-functional, because it's Microsoft, piece of software that if something goes wrong, you have someone you can call. Like, that's a big part of it. The maybe it has a few bugs, but they are actively looking to whack those bugs, ideally before you use them. This is a whole part like, the maintenance and constant upkeep of software development and software companies is very different to what people think AI can do. Even if you could just type it in and have it build an app, which you cannot, at least not a reliably functional one, you have so much more in the software stack to do before a user uses it. And oh god, oh my god, you've built this software internally. Do you have anyone in another country? I do hope it I do hope you have it on a server that can actually get to them and reliably works for them. Hey, they're using a different currency. Have you made sure that there's a shift in currency in what the currency they use or the valuation of the currency? If you check that, oh, are you doing any customer billing through it? Well, now you have to do compliance auditing. It's just there's a bunch of stuff with software that people, including the markets, just do not think about, which is good because it's boring and annoying. But this sell-off is just a sign that the markets have completely lost the plot, which is why if CapEx pullback happens, it will scare them because it's a simple thing. It's really simple. It's if the hyperscalers say we're not spending on AI anymore, people will go, uh-oh, AI not as big as me thought.
What about for some people? I mean, some of the software that I've been using recently, I've noticed that they've transitioned from like the interface I'm used to seeing to now it is quite blatantly a reskin of a chatbot of an LLM of
Mhm.
presumably whichever one they've decided to rent that month or whatever. How much of it do you think is those people think like seeing that in their work and then realizing, oh well, actually they're now replacing some of the software that I'm using with a chatbot or whatever that I'm already subscribed to or I already use for free or whatever.
I would think that would be way more logical if they were like, "Well, I'm seeing chatbots everywhere, so chatbots are coming from software." But it's not. I've read analyst letters. I've read journalists. They're saying, "Yeah, the threat of AI, sorry, the threat of against software from AI. That is it. It is just AI is going to replace software, and it's just a real dog brain to take. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be so mean, but it's like that's not how software works. Just because somebody can build a toy app that works on their computer doesn't mean that they can spin up actual cloud software that works, that is stable, that is well maintained, that is most importantly secure. Because again, if you're building an internal sales tool, CRM, customer relationship management, and you're filling it full of customer information, customer spend, location, email addresses, phone numbers, addresses, connections at the company, things that might not be good if they were made available to the public. Great. What happens if you've built all that with Claude Code and you don't know anything about security? Well, Claude Code told me it was fine. Well, I don't think your customers will tell you it's fine when there's a breach. And it's frustrating because you'd think it would be a more nuanced argument, but it isn't.
There's actually been a few stories now that you say that, they're popping up in my head. Like I think Maltbook, which flash it was a flash in the pan of, yeah, I thought you might have that reaction, but it turned out the guy who published that site had vibe coded the whole thing, and it got hacked, and then all of the
Yep.
emails were released, and it's yeah,
And
that it
private
creates
API
this.
keys. Private
Yes,
API keys of people's OpenAI and Anthropic accounts. Good stuff.
I think that's the like you say, the miscalculation happening here. That actually you need people that know what the code says before you implement it.
Well, also, the Maltbook thing was really funny because everyone freaked out about it. It's like, oh, it's AGI because they're posting on a Maltbook social network. And then it turned out that it was just the people running the bots posting themselves. I saw some slurs on there pretty quickly. That's kind of how I knew. I mean, but the other thing is people are like, wow, this is the proof that autonomous agents are coming. Guess what Maltbook can do? The same crap every LLM can do. You can build a website, kind of, and generate images. It can write text. It's like, oh, okay, great, we've done it, folks. Now, and what's funny is you run it on a MacBook Mini or whatever computer because you couldn't run it on your real computer. It would leak everything. It's incredibly insecure. You have to give it terrible amounts of access. And then it's also insanely expensive. I've seen people spending $300 to $1,000 a day running this. Wow. Wowie. Good job. Even if this assistant worked, $1,000 a day, it's $365,000 a year could have could have got a real assistant, paid them insanely well, and pocketed the change. But no, you get to pretend you're a wizard because you have an extremely unreliable assistant that kind of works. I've also heard very little about what Maltbook can actually do beyond the basic LLM functions. I've seen people saying you can leave it a voice note and it'll transcribe it. I'm like, you could do that with any of them. Could do you could do that with any of them. Whisper is an open source model that can run on your goddamn computer. You could do that already. Come on. But I think people are just desperate for a story. I think there is no obvious one. There's no obvious thing to point out and go, this is really something. I think people point at Claude Code because it's the most tangible one. It's like, oh, it writes code, and a non-coder can build something. Like it can build a website, kind of, but again, secure, functional, maybe. I don't know. It can build a piece of software, kind of, maybe. Is it functional? Is it stable? Does it run? Does it run reliably? Do the menus work? Like it it's like there's this massive gap between the promises and the realities, and people are filling it in with fan fiction and mythology.
I mean, and just to round things off, where do you see all well, not quite the mop book stuff, but what we were talking about before, where do you see it all going? Because we're seeing CEOs spending, well, not necessarily spending more money, but raising more debt and getting more money. And then $1 trillion sell-offs are becoming somewhat of a regular occurrence. I mean, this is the second one, and people are a lot less shocked. And before, that would
Yeah.
have been quite a terrifying thing to comprehend. Is it, are we? I guess the question I really want to ask is: do you think we're heading towards bailouts at some point?
I don't think so. So when it comes to, let's say, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, Google, they're not going to go belly up. Like they're not. Even if all this capex is a wash, their stocks get dumped, whatever, they will be fine. They go. Also, the reason they're doing AI is because the rest of their products are in decline. I did a piece on Microsoft a week ago. Intelligent Cloud, when you remove OpenAI's spend on Microsoft Azure, which is their cloud platform, Intelligent Cloud is one segment where that is, has actually been flat for 2 years. OpenAI's spend is boosting that. So once that goes away and all of this AI boom ends, it's going to become very obvious that all of these big tech companies are in decline. Bailout target for me is Oracle. Because I know Oracle's stock went back up and then went back down and then went back up. Crazy Larry is doing some crazy stuff. And from based on my data center model, Stargate Abilene, if it was fully spun up, it was about 30% gross margins, which is very low. And then on top of that, you got, well, I think they got nearly $1 billion a year in interest only payments on their bonds just from the 18 billion last year. Haven't even factored in the rest of their debt. Oracle is probably the bailout target if one happens just because Larry Ellison very close to Trump, but also Oracle is actually kind of systemically relevant. Like their databases are used in governments like well, they nearly bankrupted Birmingham City Council, I believe. Like it was part of their budget shortfall. Nice work, Oracle. But the point I'm making is that Oracle is a very systemically relevant company with their database software and Java as well. So I think that if anyone gets bailed out, it's them because they've spent or they're spending and raising too much debt for AI. I think that bailouts for companies like Anthropic and OpenAI are very unlikely because why? A bailout usually is a steadying force. It's something you do so that you can bring something back to the mean. You can't do that with a company that burns billions and billions and billions of dollars. And also, I think what's more likely is Anthropic will get absorbed by Google or Amazon, and Microsoft would absorb OpenAI. Kind of like a what was it? JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns? I can't remember. Can't remember. It's one of the big banks bought Lehman Brothers, but that kind of situation. I think also that bailouts will be political poison. I don't think anyone's the anger. It's a weirdly bipartisan thing I've seen on X, the Everything app, where people are pro AI, anti AI. Nobody wants bailouts. Not a single person. Right, left, doesn't matter, center. No one wants bailouts for these companies other than like 16 guys in San Francisco. And I'm talking about the people in the billionaires march. And it's going to be interesting because the conditions for a bailout would be insolvency. And the only public company I see who would face that would be Oracle. Question is when. And I think if Stargate Abilene doesn't get done this year, I think that's going to be the big thing. That is a 1.2 gigawatt data center where Oracle is going to have to put 26 to 30 billion dollars worth of chips and servers in, and they've only delivered 96,000 chips out of the 400,000 they're meant to. And I say delivered, I do not mean installed, which means they are now depreciating while not providing any revenue. Oh, and also OpenAI can't afford to pay them, which is bad. It's it. This is my frustration with all this because smug people be like, "Oh, it hasn't burst yet, Ed. You're wrong." And it's like I'm not saying this because just like being right is the thing. I'm genuinely afraid of the knock-on effects. Like, look at how the market reacts whenever Nvidia poops itself once. Look at how the market reacts when someone makes a vague statement that makes them think that software isn't going to exist anymore. What do you think they're going to do when something real happens? When something actually dangerous occurs? Do you think they're going to react rationally, or do you think they're going to dump things like a midnight trip to KFC? It's frustrating because if the hyperscalers had stopped this earlier, if they had faced Anthropic and OpenAI and kind of being like, "Hey, you have to build real companies, even if it means slowing down, even if it means not doing what you're doing," then none of this would have happened. But because we had to inflate Nvidia, because we had to do that, because they were tip top company on the stock market, because we did this, regular people, retail investors will suffer. And it's really easy to say, well, who gives a damn about investors? When I say retail investors, I mean regular people on what Robinhood or what have you who are buying stocks. I'm talking about the people, but I'm also talking about your pension funds. I'm talking about 401ks in America. I'm talking about pensions in England. I'm talking about people who are buying bonds in data centers. By the way, I really believe that most data center bonds, other than those issued by hyperscalers, are in the toilet. I think that they will not pay. I think that at the end of those periods, those companies will be in the mouth of hell. And I don't think people realize how widespread that damage will be. $178.5 billion dollars in data center deals in America just last year. I imagine it's probably several $100 billion more over the last few years, and there'll be more this year as well. I think the work that I did this week on data centers, I don't think people realize how bad these companies are, how bad these AI data centers are, because they require so much money up front that you need debt, and the only way they can pay that debt is if they're paid by someone who needs to rent AI compute, which would be either CoreWeave or another company that is unprofitable, who would be paid by OpenAI, who is an AI startup who's unprofitable. Every link in the chain of pain is such that it requires debt or equity. And without that debt and equity, if that disappears, that's what breaks things. And people are very flippant. People are saying, "Well, AI will work this out." You better bloody hope it does, because if it doesn't, we are facing probably multiple financial crises.
Wow, what a note to end it on. Ed Zitron, thanks for taking the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.